guys, Patrikios here, and welcome back to another video. And today, I have something that a friend of mine and I have been working on for a pretty long time now, and I finally am able to share it with you all. And I'm pretty proud of how this came out, and I hope that you guys enjoy it a lot, but that's enough rambling. So, a lot of you have seen my recent video essay discussing my issues with how certain parts of Season 3 were handled, and I really appreciated all of your comments from both sides. I was pleased to see that mostly everyone was very respectful in sharing their opinions, and I was able to have some very insightful and informative conversations with you guys, and I will wholeheartedly admit that you all have helped me achieve a better understanding of why the show is in the state that it is right now. Also, just to clear this up, I do not hate Miraculous Ladybug. I could never hate it. If I did, then my channel would probably be based on something else, or I would have stopped making videos altogether by now. Anyway, now, let's discuss the main topic of this video. I saw a comment suggesting that I rewrite Season 3. I don't remember who said it. I tried to find it for hours, but I couldn't find it. I know somebody did say it, so we're just going with that. I will say, rewriting Season 3 would be fun to do, but it would take me forever. Well, this alone has taken me forever, so I cannot even fathom how long it would take to do the whole season. So anyway, the way that I narrowed it down was this. I looked through the comments and I found that one of the most commonly discussed topics that came out of my video was Chat Blanc. There were people who claimed that they didn't like it, there were those that said that they enjoyed it, and there were some people in between. All sides provided very good input, and I thoroughly enjoyed reading all of them. So with that being said, I have decided to attempt to rewrite Chat Blanc in order to achieve a few things that I thought that it lacked. But I knew that this project was going to be huge and had no idea how I was going to write all of this. And then, one day, it felt like I got a blessing from the big man upstairs himself, because the amazing Gale-of-the-nomads reached out to me one day and offered to help me write this. I totally freaked because I never thought that in a million years that I would get any help on this, save the Gale. I've been following him for such a long time, and a lot of you probably know who he is if you've been involved in the ML community on Tumblr like I am. I suggest that you follow him right now and check out his stuff because his blog is full of great ML fan content. His blog is at the top of the description, so before you get any further, hop on Tumblr and follow him. So, into the details. Gale and I pretty much did half and half. We wanted to make it more satisfactory and change the pacing because we felt like it was rushed. We changed a lot and added a lot just to hopefully explain things such as the timeline, go into depth with more characters, and tie up a lot of loose ends. And most importantly, we wanted to fix how the fight scenes went down. I really don't want to spoil anything before I actually get into it, so I'm pretty much going to stop here. There will be points when I stop the story to explain why we did things, but this video will mostly consist of the rewritten story itself. Also, I apologize if this gets long, but Gale and I mutually agreed that this episode should have been multiple parts for everything to feel right. So hopefully that helps. So without further ado, here is part 1 of mine and Gale's version of Chat Blanc. So, I completely changed the beginning. I wanted to give Bunnix a bigger role in this episode, so I started off with her. We begin our scene with future Alex cleaning out her old room. She holds a wistful look on her face as she reminisces on how much easier her life was when she attended College Francois Dupont. She moves toward her closet in order to begin cleaning out her old clothes. She opens the older door with a creaking sound and stands there for a moment, taking in the more tomboyish green and black color scheme that she used to adorn in her younger years. Her eyes slowly scanned each rack until her eyes stopped to gaze upon an old cardboard box in the corner. In big sloppy letters, it read, "Old Toys." Huh, she had completely forgotten about that box. She pulled it out and sat down on the carpet to see what was inside. As soon as she opened it, she spied an old unicorn plush, spotted with small pastel flowers and a blue fluffy tail that she remembered to go by the name Princess Twinkle Peach. She gently lifted the small animal and smiled. She remembered when she took her from Rose. Rose had lost it during a bet that she had made when Marinette had tried to confess to her crush, Adrien, for the 562nd time, and she made the grave mistake of betting that Marinette would finally succeed. She remembered gladly confiscating the small creature when Marinette came back, stating how Adrien hadn't been home and she couldn't give her St. Athanasius gift to him as a result. Suddenly, at the corner of her eye, she was almost certain that she saw Princess Twinklepeach flicker. Huh, that was weird. That's something you don't see every day. But almost immediately, she flickered again, but this time with more intensity. Her eyes widened, and as she gazed at her hands, they began to flicker as well. Then, it hit her. It was the day Ladybug had warned her about. She wished Ladybug had been insightful on the details, but she knew better than anyone how dangerous too much information can be. Oh no, this isn't good, Alex said to herself, and she called Bunnix to her side. Fluff, it seems that something has gone wrong, and it's up to us to fix it. Fluff nodded and shook with anticipation, as Alex finally called, Fluff, clockwise! And scene. I felt like in the original we needed more build-up, and I felt like Bunnix just kind of dropped in mid-episode. I thought that it would have been nice to get a glimpse into the future and get to know future Alex more as a character, and see how she figured out that something was wrong, because to be completely honest, it was very unclear. Alrighty, moving on. We start with Bunnix entering her burrow. She hurriedly looks around for a few moments. When at last, she is sure that she has found the day that she was looking for. She slid her hand over the surface of the large blurred screen and it jumped to life, revealing the scene that she sought to find. She gasped and dropped Princess Twinklepeach. It was Paris, but it wasn't the Paris that she knew. The Paris that she knew was bright and full of life, but this was the opposite. It was desolate, with not even a small sign of life left. Bunnix picked up Princess Twinklepeach and noticed that she was glitching more frequently than she was before. But also, she could see that her hands were shaking, and she felt like her breath was caught in her throat. She slowly looked around, and for as far as the eye could see, the majority of Paris was submerged in water. She noticed that she couldn't find the Eiffel Tower. Her eyes scanned the scene, and she saw it, completely on its side. She looked into the sky and gasped even louder than she did before. There was the moon, completely blown in half, with a large crater in the center and a ring of debris surrounding it. Well, that explains the water levels. Then, she spotted something else. Or rather, someone. It was Chat Noir. But as Bunnix looked closer, her eyes widened. That wasn't Chat Noir. His suit looked the same, but instead of the usual all-black one that he wore, this one was all white. His hair was white too, and his eyes were a chilling icy blue, devoid of any emotion, instead of his usual green, which were always filled with love. He sat all alone on the top of the television building, with his shoulders slumped and his head in his hands. He looked so helpless. Bunnix felt a tear begin to fall on her cheek, and she wiped it away. How could this happen? Who is responsible for this? Bunnix asked herself. The burrow started to shake, and countless portals started to fizzle, like a TV during a power surge. She needed to hurry. She needed to figure out when to go. Once again, she looked down at Princess Twinklepeach, who was still flickering, and then it came to her. I know where to look, Bunnix said to the small animal. She clutched the toy tire and ran to another screen nearby, the only one that wasn't faltering. Hopefully this is the one. Chat, I'll save you, buddy. Bunnix jumped in and hoped that she was where she needed to be. In front of the Agreste mansion, young Marinette trembled, with her gift for Adrien clutched tightly in her arms. She slowly began to inch her way toward the door, muttering, "You can do this. Today's the day," to herself, over and over again. Finally, she approached the gate, and immediately, a robotic arm shot out to greet her. She managed to get out that she had a gift for Adrien, and the robotic arm replied, "I'm sorry, but Adrien is busy today," and retracted back into the wall. That's odd. Adrien's fencing lessons should have ended 27 minutes ago. He should be back by now, mumbled Marinette to herself. She sighed and started to slowly walk away, but with every step, her expression changed from one of disappointment into one of determination. She stopped, opening her purse for Tiki to come out. Tiki saw the expression on her charge's face and knew what kind of plan she was brewing in her head. Oh, no you don't! You know that your powers are not for your own personal gain. They are meant to be used to ensure the safety of the people of Paris only, warned Tiki. Come on, Tiki, it will only take 5 minutes, Marinette replied. Her Kwame sighed. Fine, but please be quick, Marinette. Marinette squealed with delight and began to run toward the nearest alleyway. A red flash came from the alley, and a moment later, Ladybug confidently emerged, her hands on her hips, and she said to herself, "Today's the day." She threw her yo-yo and flung herself toward Adrien's window. She vaulted herself in through an opening and landed cleanly inside. Ladybug stood there for a moment, happily taking in her surroundings in silence. She began to look around, and her eyes landed on Adrien's trophy shelf. Whoa, those must be from his fencing, she sighed. Ah, wow, Adrien is so perfect. She walked toward his largest trophy and ran her hand across its shiny surface. It's quite impressive, she mumbled to herself. She shook her head. Focus! I told Tiki that I wouldn't take long. The scene switches to Adrien, who had just arrived from his fencing. He walks toward the mansion's large front steps. You're very late, Adrien, chided a stern Natalie, who stood waiting at the top of the flight, with her hands behind her back. The awards ceremony took longer than expected. Then we gave Kagami a ride home, Adrien replied. Adrien continued to walk up the steps and entered the empty entrance hall. He looked up to see if his father was there to greet him, but of course, he was nowhere to be seen. Adrien stopped and clutched the newly earned medal that he wore around his neck. He turned and asked Natalie, "Will you let my father know I won?" "As soon as he's done with his work," Natalie replied. Adrien sighed and turned away, letting the disappointment on his face show, and he headed toward his room. We switched back to Ladybug, who was rushing toward Adrien's desk to find a pencil. Oh, he could be here any second! Ah, I found one! Ladybug signed the present and rushed it over toward Adrien's bed. She neatly placed the gift on his pillow and giggled. There, that should do nicely. Ladybug ran toward the opening in Adrien's window, and as she was almost gone, Adrien had opened his bedroom door and caught sight of her. Ladybug? Adrien asked toward the retreating hero, but she was already gone. He made his way to his bed and found a small gift on his pillow. On the lower left-hand corner, there were written hearts surrounding Marinette's signature. Adrien carefully opened the gift and pulled out a black beret, which adorned the same striped color scheme that his undershirt had, with the lace heart embroidered on the side. Why would Ladybug leave me a gift from Marinette? Well, you see, Marinette knows Ladybug, remember? Flag hurriedly replied. Remember when Marinette helped you defeat a Illustrator? It's obvious that she asked Ladybug for a favor. With a heart embroidered on it? Adrien asked. Well, yeah, it's a gift from Marinette. She's a kind and loving person from what I've seen. So what? Plag looked at his charge, and it was like he didn't even see him. He was thinking hard about something, and then realization struck his face. This seems too personal. What if Marinette and Ladybug are the same person? Adrien began to look back onto all of those small moments that he had had with Marinette and Ladybug. There was the time when Marinette gave him sass when he was sent to protect her from Evil Illustrator. He remembered how she reminded him a lot of Ladybug in that moment. He remembered how strikingly similar she looked to Ladybug when Clara Nightingale casted them in her music video. And finally, he remembered what Ladybug told him on the night that he planned their rooftop date. "You're my friend, and I'd never want to lie to a friend," she had told him. "But why would you think that he would be lying?" he asked her. "Because there's this boy Wait, what if the boy that she was referring to all along was me?" He had said that last word aloud, and Plag's eyes widened. No, that doesn't make any sense! Plag started to try and pull the beret out of Adrien's grip, but it was no use. He tried again. Marinette is Marinette, and Ladybug is Marinette. Adrien sighed, his eyes lost in thought, with a dopey grin spread across his face. He pulled the beret from Plag's grip and horror began to overtake Plag's expression, but Adrien didn't notice. He was focused on Marinette only. His lady. This entire time, she was there, behind him in class, every day! Adrien held the beret to his chest and sighed deeply. Plag tried to snap him out of it. Okay, Adrien, this whole thing smells like rotten cheese. You know that you aren't supposed to know each other's identities, Adrien replied. Just because I know her secret identity doesn't mean that she needs to know about mine. But what if you're wrong? What if she isn't Ladybug? I'm not wrong. I'm sure of it. Adrien neatly placed the beret on top of his head and ran towards the door to follow Marinette. As a last effort to deter the boy, Plag called out, Adrien! Putting a piece of smelly cheese on a box doesn't stop it from smelling! But he too was already gone. Alrighty, that was a long one. So, about Bunnix's discovery. I really thought that we should have been introduced to the problem early on without knowing the full why as of yet. I wanted to let the emotion sit for a second and really let the audience feel Adrien's pain and leave them wanting more. I wanted to bring the shock factor up, and by introducing it earlier without knowing the cause as of yet, I felt a lot more emotion visualizing that scene compared to how we were introduced to it in the original episode. And I hope that it had the same effect for you guys. So now, let's continue. Ladybug sprung from rooftop to rooftop and cleanly somersaulted over the chimneys in her path. She went to push off her feet to flip over the nearest obstacle, but seemingly out of thin air, a large glowing portal materialized in front of her. Ladybug tried to stop herself, but with the combination of the sleek roof and the minimal traction that her suit gave her, she tripped over a shingle and, not so gracefully, fell flat on her face. With a groan, she slowly rolled over and rubbed her nose, when a worried voice called out to her, Minibug! When her eyes readjusted to her surroundings, she realized that the voice came from... Bunnix? Ladybug thought out loud. Minibug, something happened today that caused a major disaster in the future, and I need you to come with me, right now, Bunnix worriedly explained. Well, can you tell me what happened? Ladybug was cut off as Bunnix grabbed her by the wrist and pulled her into her burrow. There was a bright flash, but it soon cleared to reveal a perfectly stable chamber. Bunnix was relieved to see that the chamber was no longer fizzling and shaking. Good. She had made the right call. The chamber was spherical, but seemed to go on forever at the same time. Its walls were filled with blurred screens, and as Ladybug looked down, her eyes widened and she saw that it seemed as if they were walking on thin air. She sucked in a breath and continued walking, still being pulled forward. Bunnix searched around as they were walking forward, and after a few moments, they stopped in front of a screen, and she began to rewind the content on screen in front of her. Curious, Ladybug began to explore. She walked to the nearest neighboring screen and placed her hand on it as she saw Bunnix do moments before. It sprung to life, revealing a Tyrannosaurus Rex living within a valley in the Cretaceous period. Whoa, Ladybug said to herself. She giggled as she ran to the next screen, which revealed Paris, but as if it were set a century in the future, with flying cars and a neon color scheme. All of a sudden, everything turned black, and she panicked. Her hands flew to her face, and she felt something on her head. It was a cooking bowl. Hey, what was that for? Ladybug whined. You want to know what you're getting for your next birthday? Bunnix scolded. No. Exactly, Bunnix replied, as she turned Ladybug around by spinning her head. Bunnix couldn't freak out right now. She needed to be stable, to stay stable, for the timeline needed them both. Ladybug pushed up the bowl slightly so she could see where she was going, and found that Bunnix had led her to the screen that she had been looking at before she had run off. What about you? You know about all your birthday presents? Bunnix chuckled to herself. Sometimes I forget how she's still just a kid. I know about some of them. She smiled and turned on the screen to reveal the moment when her father had gifted her her pocket watch all those years ago. She shook her head, and her expression became grave once again. Focus, she thought to herself. She began to make the screen change and explained, We must never tamper with the universe's time frame for personal gain. Think of the universe as a blueprint of sorts. It had everything, the good and the bad, mapped out millennia before you were even born. But there are certain times like these where something goes against the universe's design, and heroes like us are tasked with restoring the balance to the universe. For example, when Time Tagger came into your timeline, the universe had not intended for him to be there, so we had to stop him before he permanently tampered with time as we knew it. And something like that is happening again. That is why I brought you here today. Bunnix reached to lead her into the portal, but instead of making contact with her shoulder, her hand phased through it instead. She sucked in a breath as she held her hand up to look closer, and saw that it began to fade in and out instead of periodically flicker. She clenched her fist tight and warned, "Our future is in danger, and we need to go, now." Suddenly, Ladybug felt a push, and she stumbled through the portal. Once again, there was a bright white flash that dissipated into darkness again, but the darkness too faded away. As Bunnix lifted the bowl off of her head, Ladybug covered her eyes, and as they readjusted to the light, it appeared as if they were on top of the television station. As her surroundings fully came into view, she felt a shiver down her spine. She felt cold. It was midday, but it felt like midnight. Cold and desolate like the icy tundras. She noticed that everything seemed grayer. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the silence. It was deafening. It surrounded her, and if she were to scream, it felt like the silence would cancel out her cry. But something managed to escape the silence. Bunnix had crouched down next to her and whispered, "Something terrible happened here. I can't tell you how, but all that you need to know is that it's imperative that you win." Ladybug heard her breath quiver in fear and slowly turned to look at her fellow heroine. Bunnix began to rise up from her crouch and crept toward the portal. "Wait! You're not staying?" Ladybug frantically called out in a whisper behind her. "No, Minibug. I have to stand ready to jump back into time and try something else, if you fail," Bunnix replied. "Don't worry, I never lose." Ladybug had tried to reassure Bunnix, but it felt as if she were more so reassuring herself. Bunnix gave her an unreadable expression and stepped into the portal. A moment later, it disappeared to reveal a slumped figure, who drooped over the glass overhanging the edge of the rooftop. Apprehensively, Ladybug began to creep toward the figure, and as she got closer, she could hear the figure mumbling to himself, "Little kitty on the roof, all alone without his lady." The moment she recognized him, she felt her stomach drop to the floor. She stopped, and she felt her breath catch in her throat. She slowly covered her mouth with her hand, and all at once, it felt as if the world had come crashing down upon her. For the first time ever, she wasn't sure if she could win. Shat? Sitting with the moon, kitty, while his mind is going crazy. It's as if he didn't even hear her. "Shat!" Ladybug called out a little firmer this time, but she couldn't quite hide the fear in her voice. Something was very, very wrong, and her gut was screaming for her to run. Shat abruptly stopped and slowly turned around to face her. His eyes widened, and in an instant he was on his feet. Impossible. Ladybug had noticed that she had crept all the way to the base of the overhang, and she had stopped to look up at the ominous feline. "It's me, Ladybug." There was a long pause, but then Shat mumbled to himself, "So I've finally gone off the deep end." Ladybug reached out to speak again, but was cut off, for Shat began to laugh. His laughter grew louder and louder, and Ladybug felt alarm bells blaring in her mind, screaming, "Run! Run! No, I promise that it's me!" Suddenly, his laughter stopped. He looked toward the sky and yelled, "Is that the best you can do? Why don't you play with my heart some more? I can take it! You can't fool me, because I know that she's never coming back!" Ladybug felt her breath quiver again, and she hurriedly tried to reassure him. "No, Shat, I promise, it's me! I'm right here!" Isn't this a bit cruel? She sounds just like her. Ladybug moved toward her fallen partner and took his hands in hers. She began to study him. There were dark circles creeping out from under his mask, and his eyes were devoid of all the warmth that they always held. He was a shell of the person that he used to be, and she felt her eyes begin to well up. Despite her emotions, Ladybug knew that she needed to stay strong. Not just for the fate of the universe, but for Chat Noir. "It's really me, Chat Noir." Until then, Shat had been avoiding her eyes, but when he heard the gentleness and sincerity in her voice, he froze. He turned his head toward her and gently cupped her face with his hands, as if she would break with the slightest hint of a harsh touch. He moved his hand to her hair and touched one of the tufts that framed her face. He gently moved it in between his fingers, and Ladybug saw him momentarily glance at her earring. Without realizing it, Ladybug had found that she had been holding her breath. She placed her hand on his and slowly brought it from her face and held it once again. "What happened to you, Chaton?" He didn't seem to hear her, and he appeared to be lost in thought. "If she is real, then they can fix it," he thought to himself. In an instant, Shat snapped out of his trance and stepped closer. He looked her in the eyes and said gravely, "My lady, I need your Miraculous." Ladybug stopped and jumped back, letting go of his hands. Almost immediately, Ladybug shook her head. "Stay calm. The universe is counting on you," she thought to herself. She straightened and replied, "No, you don't. I will cure you and fix everything." Shat broke eye contact and began to take in his surroundings. He put his hand to his chin and thought hard. "I wonder if I should just let her. If Ladybug was really here, then she could fix things. Letting her purify the Akuma would be perfect. He could get their life back. He could be happy again, because she would be there. But he needed to know it was her." "What is my name?" Ladybug paused. "What?" "If you truly are my lady, you would know who was under the mask. We were in love after all. Even after what he did." You first. You can't just expect me to say your name without Marinette Dupain Chang." He didn't skip a beat. Ladybug was mortified. How did he know? Chat Blanc's eyes filled with rage. "I knew that it was too good to be true. You aren't my lady. You are not my Marinette!" No, wait! Chat Blanc launched towards Ladybug, and the battle for the universe began. Whew! The drama! I'm just going to say, I can't take credit for this amazing exchange. Pretty much all of it past Chat Blanc's singing was conceptualized by the amazing Gale. He laid out the dialogue and events, and all I really did for this part was for the lack of a better word, meat. Like the descriptions and stuff like that. Other than that, I don't want to kill the moment too much, so let's continue. On the other end of the portal, Bunnix stood there, her mouth agape. She had so many questions. How long had he been like this? How did he know? And most importantly, what did Marinette do? She was right. She needed to remain secure in the burrow. For the way it was going so far, the certainty of Ladybug's victory was shaky at best. But first things first, Bunnix knew that she needed to investigate their past and pinpoint what went wrong. Marinette had transformed back in the alleyway she had transformed in. She did it! She gave him the gift! I did it, Tiki! And not a second to spare! I told you it would be okay. The red Kwame looked at her and sighed. Okay, I know that I can't argue with you, but please don't make a habit out of this. I promise, Tiki, but I'm so glad I did it! She raised her arms up in celebration, and the sudden motion caused one of her hair ties to fling off. Marinette, your hair tie! She casually removes the other one, letting her hair down completely. No worries, Tiki. I have plenty at home. I need to get back to the others. Fast forward, with Bunnix confused. What? She delivered it? But that isn't what I remember! The screen gets to the scene where Marinette arrives to meet her friends. Alright, yes, I know I'm interrupting in a very inopportune moment, but let me explain. I'm not going to rewrite the confession scene because I'm not going to change it. Feel free to rewatch it if you would like, but I think that it would just make more unnecessary work for me and Gale. But I'll make sure to include a link to the scene in the description for you all, just in case if you're feeling lazy and you want to make the story feel more continuous. Anyway, let's continue. We start right after the confession scene. Bunnix was shocked at the scene. Yeah. That was definitely not how she remembered it. Well, at least she still had Princess Twinkle Peach on her. But then, the toy vanished completely. Oh no. Chat Blanc was persistent. Ladybug jumped from roof to roof, avoiding the angry cat, where she would narrowly avoid his claw swipes. Chat Noir, what happened? She dodged another swipe. What caused all of this destruction? She needed to understand what happened. Chat Blanc stopped. You want to know what happened, Bugaboo? His eerie shift put her on edge. Wait, I can't know. I just need to know where the Akuma is. Let me fix this. Ladybug remembered that knowing too much could jeopardize the timeline. Chat Blanc prepared a blast in his hands. Don't worry, Marinette. I'll keep it brief. Hawkmoth found out the truth. He found out who we were. Even the most well-kept secrets get leaked out eventually. But he made one crucial mistake. Ladybug gulped as he walked towards her. He thought that my fear of him was greater than our love. His cataclysm dispersed before he cupped her cheek. Our love? They say love is the most powerful magic, my lady, but they never mention how destructive it can be. He tilted her chin upward, and she could see the decimated moon. She felt a chill go down her spine. She composed herself, grabbed his staff, and kicked him back, breaking it in hopes of finding an Akuma. But sadly no luck. Chat Blanc's face shifted back to rage, but only this time he was furious. That hurt, Marinette, but it is nothing compared to my heart that you broke! He summoned 5 small white balls on the fingertips of his ring hand, and casually flicked all of them towards her like bullets. Ladybug barely avoided the small orbs of destruction. As they hit another building, they caused the large skyscraper to fall over, forcing the two apart. Bunnix continued digging through the bubble. What happened next? How did Chat Noir get a bleach bath? Then, cue the cutesy internet moments that should have had an individual episode. But first, Ladybug and Chat Noir on patrol. Ladybug looked worried. In contrast, Chat Noir looked extremely happy and giddy, as if it were Christmas and his birthday at the same time. Hello, my lady, he swooned. Hey, Chat. We need to talk. Chat Noir was very confused. Okay? Chat Noir's smile faltered. Was something wrong? Who hurt his princess? They will pay for hurting her! Do you remember when I told you about that boy I liked? Yes? Chat Noir said, slightly nervous, unsure of where she was going with this. He confessed to me, and he and I are together, Ladybug said with a soft smile. Oh, that. He confessed to her. She said yes. OMG, she thinks she is turning me down officially. Oh, how much he wanted to tell her. But he knew that he promised Blag that he wouldn't. Chat Noir looked down, trying his best to hide his grin. He needed to stone-face this. I see. Chat Noir, I am really sorry, but I didn't want to lead you on. I want you to know you were important to me. I don't want this to ruin our... Chat Noir hugged her, catching her off guard. It's alright, Ladybug. I understand. This probably was very hard for you to say, and I am lucky to have a partner that is so considerate of my feelings. I will be okay. I promise. Don't beat yourself up over this, okay? Ladybug tightened the hug. Thank you, kitty. I'm sure there is an amazing girl out there for you. I know there is. Bunnix fast forwards again. Cue Marinette running into Adrien's arms at school. The camera pans to Chloe, who stomped her foot and began to throw a fit. Ugh! Ridiculous! Utterly ridiculous! Then entered Lila, who had heard Chloe's hissy fit. What happened? She stopped. At the bottom of the stairway, Marinette and Adrien were closely wrapped in each other's arms, with their heads touching. They were smiling and laughing to themselves, as if no one else in the world mattered except for them. How could Adrien, a boy who was the epitome of perfection, get together with someone as simple as her? Lila had so much more to offer than that basic baker's daughter. This would not do. Marinette did not deserve him. She did. So, it was time to work her magic. Lila had been planning this for 2 weeks now. After careful deliberation, Lila had crafted the perfect plan to get Marinette expelled from school, and as a result, make her bad for the image of the aggressed brand. First, there were the papers. The day before, they had taken an exam, and Lila had been able to snag the answer key when she had left the classroom. Madame Bustier hadn't suspected a thing. Then, during PE, Lila had requested to go to the bathroom, and had been able to sneak the papers into Marinette's bag. Second, there was the necklace. She had successfully planted her grandmother's pendant in Marinette's locker after school, and thankfully she hadn't been caught. But that was phase 3. She had one more trick up her sleeve, and if her sabotage went according to plan, the opportunity she was waiting for would arise. Today, her plan would be put into motion. Lila had arrived extra early in order for phase 1 to be put into place. She had written an anonymous note that accused Marinette of cheating on the exam and placed it inside of Madame Boustier's mailbox in the school office. As planned, when class began, Madame Boustier had inspected Marinette's bag and found the exam papers still inside. Marinette had accused her of planting them in her bag, but her accusations became futile when Madame Boustier had revealed that Lila had received the worst grade in the class. Of course, Adrien had immediately sprung to her defense, followed by Alia and the rest of the class. But Madame Boustier had sent them to the principal's office anyway. Perfect. Everything was going as planned. Then came phase 2. As they made their way to the principal's office, Lila had been able to make it seem as if Marinette had pushed her down the stairs. She relished in Marinette's dumbfounded expression and had put on the perfect show. Finally, there was stage 3. She had told Mr. Damocles all about Marinette's mistreatment. How Marinette had constantly called her a liar, gotten the entire class to gang up on her, and how now she had even resorted to violence. Of course, Mr. Damocles ate her lies up, and then she moved on to the finale. She closed her statement by accusing Marinette of stealing her grandmother's fox pendant. Mr. Damocles had successfully been riled up, and Marinette's parents had demanded proof. So, she gave it to them. The whole class was there. Her parents were there. But most importantly, Adrien was there. Finally, Lila would be able to have him all to herself. Mr. Damocles had ordered for Marinette to open her locker, and sure enough, Lila's pendant fell right out. Everyone's reaction had been priceless. Marinette, speechless. Her parents, disappointed. Her friends, angry. Then, the sweetest melody came to her ears. Marinette Tupain-Chang, you are expelled from this school! Adrien had immediately rushed to Marinette's side and tried to defend her, but it was no use. It was pandemonium. People were yelling back and forth, and no one seemed to be winning. Suddenly, from the corner of the room, someone called out, "Enough!" Everyone stopped. They all turned toward the sound of the voice, and to everyone's surprise, it was Chloe Bourgeois. She stepped forward. She locked eyes with Mr. Damocles and held his gaze until she was face to face with him. She stared daggers into him, and Mr. Damocles began to shrink into himself. She took a deep breath and spoke. "I demand that you keep Marinette at school." Everyone gasped. Impossible. But Miss Bourgeois, Marinette has been expelled on false pretenses, she interrupted. Marinette has been framed! Both Lila and Marinette stood there, mouths agape. You could tell that in a million years, neither of them expected for this to happen. Miss Bourgeois, I can't do that. Don't make me get Daddy involved. Chloe whipped out her cell phone, called Mayor Bourgeois's number, put it on speakerphone, and let it ring. Mr. Damocles' face turned a ghostly white and began to frantically wave his hands. No! We don't need to bother the busy mayor while he's working! What do you propose we do then, Miss Bourgeois? Chloe ended the call and put her phone away. She simply replied, "Check the security cameras." Cameras? Lila slowly looked up, and sure enough, there it was. A security camera, pointing right at Marinette's row of lockers. Oh no. Surely enough, all of Lila's handiwork had been caught on film, and this time, it was Lila's turn to be speechless. She had been caught red-handed, and, as a consequence, she was expelled. Oh, but that was not all. Lila's plan had worked, but the only problem is that she was the one who suffered Marinette's fate. She ended up ruining her reputation, and as a result, was deemed bad for the Aggress brand. You see, A few days before, Lila had been able to weasel her way into an Agrest photoshoot via Gabriel Agrest himself, for by the time the photoshoot would have rolled around, Marinette would have already been expelled, and she would have begun her plan to make Adrien hers. Boy, did that backfire! Now, karma had been served to her on a silver platter, and she would be doomed to eat it for the rest of her days. Later that day, Chloe pulled Marinette aside. It had been a few hours since Lila had been expelled, and Marinette was still trying to wrap her head around the fact that Chloe was responsible for saving her. Chloe walked closer to Marinette and awkwardly put her hands on her shoulders. She scanned their surroundings to make sure that they were alone and took a deep breath. Listen here, Dupain Chang. I don't like you dating Adrien. But he does for some weird reason. He is my friend, and as long as he is happy, I won't ruin it for him. Ah, she did it for Adrien. Now that sounds like Chloe. Nonetheless, Marinette smiled. She placed her hands on Chloe's shoulders and replied, Thank you, Chloe. Chloe took her hands off of Marinette's shoulders and swatted her hand dismissively. Psh, just because I helped you doesn't mean that I like you. She crossed her arms and looked to the side. Despite her obstinance, the smallest hint of a smile appeared on her face. But in an instant, it was gone. With a hand on her hip, Chloe pointed a finger in her face and warned, This conversation never happened. Capiche? Sure, Chloe. Satisfied with her answer, Chloe began to walk away. Au revoir, Dupain Chang! Until next time! Or not, because this conversation never happened. Ever! Marinette giggled and waved at the departing blonde. Who knew? Marinette said to herself. Hey, I'm back! It's been a while, huh? So, I'm just here to explain a few small details. Gale and I really wanted to explain why Lila wasn't in the episode. So, we tried to go with the alternate timeline theme and write a what if for the plot of Ladybug and tie it into Adrien and Marinette's relationship. Also, we wanted to give Chloe the redemption she deserves and leave her as sort of an anti-hero of sorts. Other than that, we left the original dates pretty much the same. But we did expand onto the news report. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before I get back into the dates, here's the gist of what happened in the original dates that we didn't expand on. On the first date, Marinette and Adrien were seen for a few seconds intimately dancing with one another on the coffin houseboat. Then, on the second date, Marinette and Adrien shared some of Andre's ice cream at sunset on the Padlock Bridge. But honestly, there could have been so much more fluff and so many more dates. So we added more. Duh. Dates could have happened like maybe Marinette giving him a birthday gift. I know this is late, but I wanted to give you a birthday gift, since, Marinette, you already gave me an amazing gift. What? Being my girlfriend? You're too sweet. And then they share a cute little kiss, because it's cute. Or maybe they could have had an ice skating date. Don't worry, Marinette, I got you. I'm not. They do a cute routine, laughing. And then, finally, a scene before that news report of them being together. Adrien, I'm not sure about this. You know how your fans can be. I love you, and I want the world to know it. But what if... What if what, Mari? What if they don't like me? Adrien began to laugh. What? Adrien! I'm serious! He began to laugh harder and clutched his stomach. Do you really think that they wouldn't like you? Adrien had stopped laughing. He was dead serious. What do you mean, Marinette Dupain Chang? You were the most amazing girl that I have ever met. You are passionate, loving, selfless, generous, and most of all, to me, you are the reason why my life is great. You make me happy, and I love you. I want to show you off to the world. Marinette felt her heart become overwhelmed with warmth. She knew that with him, she felt more invincible than her suit could ever make her feel. She knew that right now, at this very moment, nothing else mattered but him. I love you too, Adrien, and I trust you. Let's go introduce you to the world. Cue them going to the event, and then the news article. They were holding hands. Next scene shows Gabriel talking with Natalie. Sir, don't you think it's going too far? Marinette harbors a deep love for my son. The negative emotions from the heartbreak will make her the perfect Akuma. One so strong, not even Ladybug and Cat Noir could stop her. And what if it fails? Adrien will be devastated. All for nothing. We will fix it should it fail. But I am not wasting this chance. And scene. Alrighty guys, that's the end of part 1. Yes, there are multiple parts. I know, but Gale and I were probably gonna end up writing like 40 to 50 pages, and I literally only read to page 20. That's how long this is. It's going to have to be multiple parts because for us to achieve everything that we wanted to achieve, that's pretty much how it's gonna go. But yeah, I hope that you guys liked this first part. Gale and I had so much fun writing it, and let us know in the comments below what you thought of our changes and revisions. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you watched all the way to the end, thank you, because Gale and I worked very hard on this, and we appreciate those of you who stayed to the end. Stay tuned for the next part, which will be coming soon. I don't have an exact release date, but it will be coming. So anyway guys, I hope you all enjoyed. My name is Bombskull91, and I will see you all later. Goodbye!